Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Friday report out. Hello, my name is Helen Gilbert. I'm the Kaiser Promotion Office lead. I'm a stand-in for the exec today because they're all at a board timeout. But it's an absolute privilege to be here today to welcome our RPIW team from Neurosciences, who are going to report out about their RPIW week that they've been engaged in this week. We've got Julie Leaper here and Charlotte O'Neill, who are going to talk about how the liver team are tackling waste. And then an absolute privilege to present some certificates to members of our organisation who've worked really hard to achieve learning outcomes. And so without further ado, can I welcome RPIW 4 from Value Stream 3, who've been looking at the repatriation of patients this week.
I'm Senior HR Manager and I'll be the workshop lead for this RPIW. As Helen said, it's RPIW number 4 for value stream number 3, which is a joint value stream between adult critical care and neurosciences. The focus of that value stream is about the flow of patients. So this week we focused on one element of that flow, which is rehabilitation of patients to different centres across the UK or the region. So we started out by trying to understand how many professionals were involved in that process, which was a significant number, and also how long that process took for a referral to be made to a rehabilitation centre. So our project form is developed around the data that's been collected and the evidence that we have built in terms of the observations of that process, and I'm going to hand over to Helen for that.
Thank you. So hello, my name is Helen Rowley. I am a General Manager in Head and Neck, and I've been the team leader for this RPIW this week. As you can see from our target progress report, we've had some key indicators that we've been working towards this week. Some of the significant ones, as Dawn has alluded to, is our lead time. So our lead time at the start was 52 hours and 32 minutes, which is the equivalent of 6.5 working days. We wanted to, our challenge this week was to get that down to a single working day. We also noticed that the referrals that we do send, before the week began, we had a 92% defect rate on the referrals that were sent through. So our challenge to the team was to get to a 0 defect place. Our TAC time for this process, so the amount of time we have to undertake this task, we have around 1 referral per day and we have a total of 480 minutes per day. So that gave us the TAC time of 480 minutes to complete the task.
Hello, my name is Kirsten Leach. I'm the matron for neurosurgery. And I'm the process owner. This was the value stream map that we started with on Monday. The green boxes show the processes. The first box is when the initial decision is made for a referral for rehabilitation. This decision can be made by anyone at any time, for example, a nurse, a doctor, a physio or an OT. The rehabilitation prescription then needs to be completed, again by anyone at any time. This form then gets faxed or emailed to the hospital. This current process takes 52.32 hours, and these are working hours, so 8 till 4, so as Helen said, about 6.5 days. The coloured clouds at the top are called Kaizen bursts, and these show the waste in the current process. The next slide is the standard worksheet, and this shows the flow of information between the people and places. The next slide again is a time observation form. So this is how we collated all of the information that gave us the lead time of 52 hours, which is a median time. And during the week we collated all of our ideas and plans on these information idea forms that we had around the room at the time.
Thank you. So my name is Neeraj, one of the neurosurgical SHOs. And when starting a process like this, it's very important that we're all talking about the same thing, we're all speaking the same language. So currently, the process is that the decision to centre rehabilitation comes from the morning ward round. So that consists of the nurse in charge and the ward team, the ward doctors doing the ward round and saying this patient is medically fit for discharge, needs to go somewhere, needs to go to rehab. And actually that's incorrect, because the process of going to rehabilitation is not our decision to make. It's a decision, it's an MDT decision that's primary therapy led. And that's where the process should go. So we've decided to change the way we talk about things. So we're going to firstly define what rehabilitation is. So it's a process of achieving patient-led goal in both the acute and non-acute setting in order to try and get them back towards their baseline. Then we want to use the term medically fit for rehabilitation. So for us on a neurosurgical ward, that means someone who doesn't require acute neurosurgical intervention anymore and is medically stable. And then finally, the therapy team, we're going to use the phrase therapy fit for rehabilitation. That's someone who's got the ability to engage in therapy sessions, has got clear goals and the timeline in place to achieve those goals and meet their potential. And the decision to make a referral to rehabilitation is going to be moved away from the ward round to the board round, where there is a therapy team present and input can be made by them. And with this in mind, with the understanding that actually this is not going to be a doctor-led process, the decision has been made to remove the doctors from the filling in of the worksheet, because we're not adding any value and merely an extra step in this process.
Hello, my name's Jess. I'm one of the Sisters in Neurosciences and I've been a team member this week. So following on from what's just been said, we decided that in order to improve on our current practice that we needed to standardise the rehabilitation referral process and eliminate any waste from this process. As referenced by Neeraj, the first step in of our standard working process involves making a decision as an MDT that the patient is ready for rehab. Similarly to the current process, the decision will be made collectively with the appropriate healthcare professionals and the patient will then be identified in board round. As highlighted earlier by Kirsten, we found that in our current process there is then a significant delay in this form being completed and sent, and often people are assuming that others have taken responsibility for this task. Another common theme that we found was that the nurses were often completing the medical section of the prescription. Following a conversation with Dr. Smith, we found that he would be happy to pre-populate the medical element of the prescription following board round. From our findings, we felt that allocating an individual to be accountable for the completion of the form would be a fundamental aspect in setup reduction. The accountability should be decided based upon work capacity, and they will then be responsible for contacting Dr. Smith following board round, ensuring the completed form is sent to the appropriate organisation. After further deliberation, we suggested that the allocated therapist for the patient, both physiotherapist and occupational therapist, alongside the nurse in charge, should meet at 12:15 in the EDAM room to complete the rehab prescription. As part of the standardised process, this completed form should then be uploaded to PPM and moved into the completed referrals folder on the shared neurosciences drive. As a team, we have discussed a number of visual cues, including the above flow chart, to facilitate the home team in the transition between the existing process and the new process. I will now hand you to my colleague Megan, who will discuss the standard operations we have undertaken this week with the home team.
Hello, my name is Megan and I'm one of the occupational therapists and I've been a team member this week. So once we had the new process identified, it involved completing 3 PDSAs with the home team at 12:15 using the time observation forms. Instantly benefits were recognised such as collaborative working, clear communication and ensuring its quality checked by our colleagues. But most importantly, a reduction in the time taken to complete the form. Feedback from the home team included, would it be better if the form was completed straight after board round? And although we recognise as an advantage of this, we do feel that there would be negative consequences such as delaying treatment and delays in attending to other acute and priority work. Furthermore, we feel that the 12:15 time slot is protected time for patients and their meal times. Another important change identified is the value of this form, and recognising that it's a snapshot of the patient's rehab needs and the importance of completing this at the right time with the right people. And although the information may have changed once the receiving hospital has an available bed, the initial information is paramount in ensuring our patients are accepted to receive the best care to meet their ongoing rehab potential, and that this has been made jointly as an MDT. It feels a positive and successful change, and going forward we can only hope it will strengthen teamwork and the value behind this new process.
Hello, my name's Sarah Miller. I'm Head of Nursing for Neurosciences, and I've been the outside eyes in this process this week. So as you've already heard, we've had extensive debate regarding the purpose of the rehabilitation referral form. Is the form necessary? When is it necessary? And who will take responsibility for the form? We had a really helpful discussion with Dr. Smith on Wednesday morning, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment really. As a team, it made us realise and have so much respect for the form in the process and understand how valuable the form is for the patient. It's classed as a patient rehabilitation prescription. It was interesting to hear from Dr. Smith that he'd been to a conference at the beginning of the week, at the British Society of Rehabilitation conference, and actually changes to the form are actually going to be mandated. And one of those key changes is going to be around having patient involvement within the form. We still wanted to do a 5S exercise on the form because we thought it would be helpful. So we approached our team on the Gemba to understand how user-friendly the form was to sort the necessary from the unnecessary. The team explained that actually the bit that was quite difficult sometimes to follow was the actual guidance on the form. So that's what we decided to concentrate on the 5S project on. So what did we actually achieve from the 5S? We were able to standardise a process description for how to complete the form. We were able to identify the operators of who were to complete the form and when, the information that was necessary and not necessary, and why the information on the form was necessary, and also where it should be documented.
Hello, my name's Lindsay. I'm a physiotherapist on neurosciences. So during the RPIW, we produce process maps for our current state, which is what we were doing before, and our future state, which is what we're hoping to move towards now. And when we compare the two of them, the future state map shows that we've got a much more streamlined map with fewer processes and people involved. This means that we've been able to remove the majority of the waste in that process as well. When we created the new map, which is the one at the bottom, we used the post-its from the old map, which is the one at the top. So you can see, if you look at the two together, how much we've managed to remove from the process by what's left behind on the original map. We still have one post-it on the new map, which is represents a waste in our process, and that is the wait between making a decision to fill in a rehab prescription at board round and actually filling in and sending off the prescription at the 12:15 meeting. So that might be a focus of our future work over the next 90 days. Going forward, there's further ways that we think we could improve the process. Many of those are linked to IT solutions, such as having a shared email account or using PPM for visual cues. And some of those have just not been possible to change within this week, but they're things that have gone into our parking lot to look at over the next phase of the RPIW. We also need to work to make sure that this is something that's sustainable, so changing our practice that we can carry on with.
So the results are in. The full week, there's been testing going out throughout the whole week. As you can see from the improvements, the lead time, we've had an improvement of 95%, which I will talk about in just a second. The quality measure, we had a 92% defect rate to begin with. We've improved this by 100%. So the forms that we are now quality checking in flow have been defect-free during this process. And our setup reduction time, which is the amount of time to complete the actual form, has improved by 99%. That lead time of 6.5 days, 52 hours and 32 minutes is now down to 2 hours, 32 minutes. So if you put that into the context of bed days, 6.5 bed days down to 6, removing 6 bed days. So the team had the objective to get this form done in a single 8-hour day. I think you've achieved your targets this week. Huge congratulations. Long may it continue.
So this is the value stream map that we showed you at the beginning of the presentation. So the Kaizen bursts at the top are the wastes, and we've crossed out all of the waste that we've taken out of the process so far. So there are still some left, and obviously that's what we're going to work on over the next 30 days. And this is our newspaper. So these are the actions that we were going to look at and the people that were going to be involved. So the first page we've completed in the first week, the first 4 actions. And then on the second page, these are the actions that we're going to look at and hopefully try and complete in the next 30 days.
So as you've heard, there's been some really key learning this week with the team. And one of the elements is understanding that that rehabilitation prescription is absolutely of value. And reinforcing that has made the push for improvements carry through the week to the incredible achievements that we've made. You've heard about the accountability. We started out, people didn't know who was accountable, and now there's very clear accountability for that process. The balance between the clinical priorities and the work priorities, I think it was Megan that focused on that, understanding how to balance the very limited time that every professional in that patient's care has to make it the best process for the patient. We've heard that quality is now built into that process, and that was a really key learning element, that when we looked at 52 hours, what happened about the quality. And we needn't have worried about our ideas being tested on the Gemba, as the team were totally supportive. This team have been out every single day with their colleagues on the home team, and have been trying out new ideas and making those improvements happen and creating those achievements. And in the words of Neeraj earlier this week, channeling Donald Trump, we can make rehabilitation great again. So finally, for me, a few thank yous. First of all, I just want to mention, because I didn't mention it at the outset, that this RPIW week has been an assessment week for myself as workshop lead and for Helen as team lead. So no pressure on us, right? I have to say that this team have worked incredibly well together and incredibly hard. So I want to say thank you to the team members, each and every one, and also to Becky, who I've forgotten to write down on this list, who came in during the week to swap with Lindsay for one day, which is great, thank you. And thank you to Stroke Physio for covering Lindsay so that she could be here. Steve would like to thank you for stepping in at the very last minute as sponsor. Do appreciate that. We as a group wanted to thank our colleagues at Chapel Allerton for providing information this week that's been invaluable to understanding some of that, the importance of the form and what is included. And thank you for inviting us to join you on Tuesday next week when you have a review of that process. We had the home team out there on the Gemba all week, putting up with us, going in and out, saying, can you do this, can you try this? We've had exceptionally positive feedback from those individuals, and also to the advisory team. So, Dr. Smith, thank you for coming in after you've been to conference to give us some feedback. Suzanne Spink was our speech and language therapist who was on standby, and I think some of our team have contacted you during the week. Jo Clapham, the bed manager, who was available to help out. Caroline, thank you for holding the fort back at the CSU. Head and Neck CSU, thank you for releasing Helen this week from her general manager duties, although she's been squeezing them in around the work we've been doing. Thank you to HR for releasing me for my time. Faye Story, I just wanted to say thank you because she sorted out the room that we've held the RPIW in at very short notice and has been absolutely brilliant. And lastly, but by no means least, the KPO team, without which none of this would be possible. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll save questions for the end. Can I welcome down Julie and Charlotte? to share with us how the liver team are tackling waste.
Thank you very much. My name is Julie. I'm one of the clinical dietetic managers, looking after one of the adult teams, which the liver specialist dietetic team is a part of. I'm really proud to share some of the work that the team has developed over the last 12 to 18 months in terms of tackling waste. Just to put the dietetic department into context, we have a lot of engagement, we believe, in terms of the Leeds improvement method. Currently we have myself and another clinical dietetic manager just about to do module 5 on Lead for Leaders, so we're nearly there. And I feel like we've got over the first difficult part of all the figures and the things that you were presenting earlier for your report out. We had a department timeout, which is really where the journey started, in July 2017 for us, led by the KPO team. We had over 65 dietitians and assistants who attended. Jo Bewley at the time, I think, was completing her Lead for Leaders and gave us some ideas on 5S ideas of her work. And we also asked every single person within the timeout to come up with the top 3 ideas for waste reduction once some of the teaching had been completed. It's absolutely no surprise that sorting out the G&I drive in the dietetic department is the top one, which we're now on with. It's not an easy task, but little by little. We've followed that up with team timeouts in July 2018, so 3 adult teams and the children's team had timeouts to share either their waste reduction work or they completed waste reduction work within the time that was dedicated for the timeout. Within this year's appraisal season, we've asked all staff to have one objective that is related around the Leeds improvement method, so we should have lots of data to share next year. And then we also include it regularly in team meetings. So the liver team have very much taken on waste reduction projects, and we're here to share what seems like 4 small projects initially, but I think what I learned very early on in the process is little things obviously add up to much bigger gains. So we're going to look at one around emails, which might relate to generic emails that you were talking about in the previous presentation. One about documentation, and 2 that relate to multidisciplinary clinics.
So I'm Charlotte, I'm one of the liver dietitians. So first of all, I'd like to talk to you about our email issue. So we, at the time of doing this project, were a team of 2 band 7s, 1.56 full-time equivalent, 1 band 6, which is me, and a part-time dietetic assistant. Going forward, we're going to be 1.8 again, because one of our colleagues is coming back off from mat leave. So we work on a regional unit, and we're a valued member of the MDT. We've got a great rapport with them, and that's sort of partly due to, well, very much due to our the key link between clinical outcome of our patients and nutritional status. We also link in with a lot of dietitians all around the region to do joint care, and as a result of that, there can be a high number of emails from the MDT or other centres to deal with regarding patient care. So traditionally, the dietitian who probably the person sending the email best knows would receive emails regarding patient care. However, this could result in quite a high burden of emails, and that, in addition to sort of staff being on leave, could affect the response time to those patient-related queries. So we decided to deal with this issue. And the first thing we did, of course, was to try to estimate and then record the time spent on emails each week to get a bit of a baseline idea. So what we then did was set up a generic liver dietitian's email. We also created some standard paragraphs between us for automatic replies so that we could acknowledge receipt of those emails checked. We agreed a plan for who would check the email on which day, and then we also tried to look at whether we could engage our dietetic assistant in being part of checking that email and keeping on top. So So, the initial results have shown that there's time saved of 2 hours and 5 minutes per week. This graph shows that quite nicely. And our second graph shows you a little bit better that not only have we saved time, but we've also changed the proportion, the ratio of how much dietetic time, how much dietetic assistant time has been spent on dealing with those patient-related emails. So that's really impacted on dietetic time being freed up for work specific to their role. And in future, we're hoping for even better waste reduction as members of the MDT and other areas get more and more used to emailing this generic account.
So the second project they looked at was the documentation that took a long time and was frustrating to have to duplicate when the liver dietitians are carrying out transplant assessments. On average, 6 to 7 transplant assessments per week will be referred to the dietitians to review. That might be either as an inpatient or an outpatient. And 1 hour had historically been identified in job plans, but frequently it was taken over the hour, and especially when you were communicating with other regional centres or local dietitians or communicating with the MDT. That hour also had to include the time that you spent with the patient in a full nutritional review, taking anthropometric data for those subjective measurements of nutritional status. But what happened was that there was documentation that had to be put in terms of a nutritional assessment in what colloquially is known on the liver unit as the pinky. Essentially, it's just a combination of MDT documentation and on pink cheese, which is why it's known as pinky. So dietitians would write in the results of their assessment in there, but then would duplicate that information into the dietetic record cards. So clearly this was frustrating, and also then as we started to use PPM plus more, there was possibly in some scenarios third duplication of work. So what the dietitians did was sought advice from myself about whether they could write one entry in the pinky and then just photocopy and put that into the dietetic record cards and streamline some of the documentation, which seemed quite simple, but did actually save a lot of time. So we've got a similar amount of time spent with the patient of 40 minutes per patient and on face-to-face. But prior to the change, the dietitians were spending about 20 minutes documenting the patient care, whereas now they spend 10 minutes documenting. If we look at, on average, 6 patients a week, that's an hour saved in terms of documentation per week. And also the ratio of patient care to the amount of time you're writing or entering information electronically has increased to more than 80-20 split, whereas before they were spending a third of the time on documentation. And last of all,
so I'm going to talk to you about our last 2 little waste projects. So on a Tuesday, there are 3 of the dietitians on our team sitting in a liver transplant clinic. One of them is my colleague Catherine Kearney, who does a clinic which sort of sees the patients who are 3 to 12 months post-transplant. So the patients are booked to see the consultant, so there's no booked dietetic reviews at all. The dietitian prioritises on that day who to see, and the patients for review by the dietitian that day are provided with a purpose slip by the nursing staff to tell them please wait to see the dietitian after you see the doctor. So the issues that arise from this are looking for patients and being unsure whether they're with a doctor in a treatment room or have already left without seeing you. And the inability to mark people as a DNA because they're not booked in. And that affects clinic utilisation, but also identification of attendance issues as well. Another area that wastes time in this clinic is the duplication of write-ups. So very much similar to the transplant assessments, we were writing in the record card and on PPM, and that's part of communication with the rest of the MDT, which is important. So there are obviously 2 facets to working on waste in this area, and the first thing that we have done so far is looking at documentation. So what you can see here is that PPM plus documentation time has increased and writing the record card has decreased, and overall we've had a reduction of 15 minutes per week, which is small, but obviously there's still a second part to come to this project of trying to book people in, and overall there's a lot of time to be saved. So another clinic that runs within this Tuesday morning big clinic is my pre-transplant clinic. So very similarly, the clinic is consultant-led, dietary reviews are prioritised on the day and retrospectively booked in, and there's a poor patient flow therefore. So the dietitian wastes time waiting for patients to come through, as they're only due to arrive at the time of their consultant appointment. And also, 2 or more patients may be available suddenly for the dietitian to review at the same time, because there's maybe 2 consultants in the clinic and also a transplant coordinator. Therefore, the patient wait can be quite long as well. Whoever has received a slip to ask them to see the dietitian and has left without seeing us can't be marked as a DNA, can't prove that they actually received that slip, and again that affects clinic utilisation. And because the patients are seen largely after the consultant, you can end up with sort of bunched up consultations towards the end of the clinic, writing up afterwards, and it really eats into the afternoon. So what we did here was created a clinic template where we had 4 booked slots and 2 free slots to still allow consultants to bring the patient round if they're concerned, or for us to prioritise people on the day. An additional change was we decided to start typing in the consultation where appropriate. So this should enable clear DNAs, waiting list management by actually booking people into the clinic, so that you've not got sort of big long waiting lists that our admin team are getting really concerned about. Improve patient flow and allow admin time within the actual consultation time rather than afterwards. And this slide here, you can see that we have reduced the time waiting for patients. The documentation time hasn't reduced that much from typing, but we're still sort of working on sort of recording and seeing if different sort of clinic sizes affect that number. But there's really a clear reduction in dietitians' waiting time, which is really important. There's improvement in patient flow and patient experience, and also the dietitian's experience, and particularly the key benefit is that the clinic is finished more promptly, and the afternoon session is therefore freed up. So the time saved is 66 minutes per week based on a 6-patient template.
And also Charlotte now gets a luncheon time as opposed to the last 3 years of not going into the afternoon. So overall, we're just really happy to report that that combined total of 4 projects has saved nearly 4.5 hours per week.
Thank you, excellent work. It's great to see the combination of improvements coming out of teams that spend a week together working on things, and also leaders in our organisation leading by example through things like Lean for Leaders, understanding value and waste. Everybody can get involved in the Leeds improvement method. It is just fantastic. I stand here feeling very proud. And without further ado, I have 3 certification presentations to do. The first of which particularly is a special one. Notwithstanding that it's Sophie in the KPO team, but this is a first for Leeds teaching hospitals, because some of you may be aware that back in June I was formally accredited by Virginia Mason to be able to perpetuate the development of the method in our organisation, and it's only through that that I'm able to award Sophie the first certificate in our organisation, to say that Sophie can continuously improve Kaizen and is fully qualified to deliver our rapid process improvement weeks in the role of team lead and workshop lead. And I have to say to you, Sophie, you know, you make me proud every day, but I learned so much about and from this method through your eyes in our organisation, so absolutely well done.
Just a little bit, sorry. Thank you all for being here, but thank you KPO team. Helen, thanks so much for supporting me through all this. I just wanted to say, I really didn't want to get up here today because
you've been booked into so many report hours.
I've been saying, really, do I have to get up? I'm not sure I really want to. But then I thought, I work for the KPO team, and if I can't stand up and be proud for the achievements that I've gone through, then who can? So I have to promote the KPO team and what a fabulous team it is to work for. My fellow Lean for Leaders and ALT graduates, or the ones that are on it now, keep going. I know it's tough, but anything that's worthwhile is. So keep going and empower others to join in, because if we can keep practicing Kaizen, we'll get there.
Dawn? You'll be back again shortly. So this is Dawn's Lean for Leaders certification. So Dawn's been on a very intense journey. She started on Lean for Leaders with us, and as you heard today, she's completed her workshop lead certification subject to a few final little pieces of work. But this today is about Dawn completing her Lean for Leaders work, which I know some of you in the audience know is not an easy thing to do. So all 6 modules, all the work completed, exec Gemba rounds. Well done, Dawn, and thank you.
I just want to very quickly say, really to what Sophie said really resonates. It is hard, and anything that's worth doing is worth working hard for. But the real benefits of this starts when you actually do this stuff. So actually doing the work that we've been doing this week with RPIW, doing those standard operations, doing that mistake proofing, 5S, all of those things, that's when you start to see the results and realise that we can do great things. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Lewington, it says on here.
That's my name.
I've been used to calling you Andy all this time. Andy's Lean for Leaders certification as well. He's worked really hard in the same way Dawn has, and some of you here, to complete all the work from his module, and I was on your exec Gemba round, so I could see all the fruits of your work, so well done, and thank you very much.
Shall I say a few words?
Yes, go for it.
So yes, everyone else has said a few words, so I feel I should. It was great to be on this course. There can be a number of people that are rather cynical about these sort of things, but I really learnt a lot going on to it about how it's about working as a team. I've always been a team player, and I felt it helped me justify some of the things and the ways I approach situations where I work. The real need to make sure everyone feels part of what we're doing as an organisation, as a department. And I found also, since I've done this, that people now come to me within the department, and if they're thinking of doing something, they ask me for how this might be approached. And I do think I've got something to offer them now, which I didn't have beforehand. I really can give them a structure. There's a lot of quality improvement going on around us at the moment. It's something that's within the kidney world, something that I see us trying to do very much, and it's something that I think that I can take forward now and continue to try and improve patients' outcomes, as well as try and improve other processes and areas that I work within, including research and education. So thank you ever so much, Helen. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. It was hard work, I got to admit that, but I'm really glad I got there in the end, so thank you very much.
Yeah, well done. Invite the RPIW team back, Julie and Charlotte back, the certification candidates back, and does anybody have any questions for any of the teams? If you want to come back down again. And also, Joe, my KPO team have not let me down. We've got Joe, we've got your Lean for Leaders certificate as well here.
Come on down,
Joe, your Lean for Leaders certificate, well done.
Already alluded to it, it was hard going, but I really enjoyed it. I really did, and I think when Andrew's saying about teamwork, it's made our team more cohesive, and I can see how we can improve things in the future. I use the principles on a daily basis, even if you're not doing it as part of a structured process like an RPIW week. You can still use the principles, which is what I tend to do.
Congratulations. Questions, comments, compliments from the audience?
Regarding the dietitian's work, so we've kidney clinics, and we see a whole range of patients there, and we have dietitians there also. So it seemed really interesting. Do you have any awareness of what other dietitians are doing throughout the trust? Are they having a similar approach and booked appointments?
We're just about to change in some of the renal clinics to that, because that's been some of the clinical leaders module 1-2 work, so we're certainly working on that to raise time.
Brilliant, because I can see a real place for this to allow that more coordinated approach and finish on time, which is important for everyone, really.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just want to say how proud I am of this, because it just shows you that, I think it's echoing what you said earlier, Helen, is about there's some things that work really well just going for it and doing it yourself or within your own local teams, and there's some things that you need a whole MDT to sort out, and I think both need to be done in tandem. But I think it's great that we're involving a whole MDT and getting these things sorted out, and I think it's really a good model to use, because I think therapists have got a really key role in a lot of these different RPIWs.
And I think my overall summary of all of the work that we've heard today is our time is important, it's precious, and what you're seeing is more and more focus on making sure that our time is used to the best of our professional skills and abilities, and using that time wisely and productively for both ourselves and our patients. Sometimes that means we get to leave on time. When you push those boundaries a bit further, you fit more work in your day. And we've heard all of the different ways that everybody's doing that here today, so absolutely.
Helen, can we just say we've got an update for our process?
Oh!
They've just heard hot off the press, they've done it today, and the set-up time is now...
It was 8:57. So
we changed them to 9 minutes or less. Was that 8 minutes 57? Excellent! So I think that concludes our report out. Thanks for joining us at the LGI. Our next report out is next Friday, the 19th of October, at Gledow Meeting Room 4 over on our St James's site. So warm welcome for you to join us next week. Thank you.